Blue sapphires are definitely one of the most popular colored gemstones in the market, if not the most popular. And there's a few different reasons for this. They're found in several sources around the world, which makes them a little more accessible than some of the other colored gems. They come in a very wide variety of qualities and price points. And of course, the color blue is definitely the universal favorite color around the world. Like many sought-after colored gems in the market, there are a lot of trade terms that sometimes get thrown around when you're shopping for a blue sapphire. And a lot of the times these terms are used, especially online, to try to communicate with you the color of the blue sapphire because it is the most important value factor. Some of these terms that you may have seen when shopping for a blue sapphire include cashmere blue, royal blue, cornflower blue, Ceylon blue. There are quite a few, and I'm going to break down for you a little bit about what each of these mean. The first thing to know is that these trade terms are not standardized in the industry, and so they can mean a lot of different things to different people, and they can actually vary quite a bit depending on where you are in the world in the different gem markets. So you need to really take these terms a little bit with a grain of salt and know that they are sometimes used to help you decide on the color. But it's always best to see a gemstone in person, and so you can decide what the color means to you and what your preferences are. Regardless of how a blue sapphire is labeled, the most expensive qualities of these blue sapphires are going to fall in the medium to medium dark tone and strong to vivid saturation. This means when you look at the stone, it is a bright blue, it has wonderful saturation, it's vibrant, it has sparkle and great light reflection, it's brilliant. And when you look at it and when you tilt it in the light, it has all over type of reflection and sparkle back to your eye. And of course, you're also going to be looking for a stone that has high clarity with very few inclusions that are visible to your eye. When it comes to the terms Kashmir sapphires and Ceylon sapphires, these two terms both relate to geographical regions. And the first one is definitely probably the most famous and the most misunderstood and overused. Kashmir sapphires refer to stones that were mined in the Kashmir area in the most northern region of India in the late 19th century and the early 20th century. These stones are very famous for their beautiful color, and it's sometimes referred to as blue velvet. It not only was known as a very saturated blue, sometimes a little bit of an indigo blue, but it also is famous for their beautiful velvety texture. And the velvety texture actually comes from what we call rutile inclusions. They're very tiny, microscopic, needle-like inclusions that run all parallel in the stone, and when light reflects off them and kind of rolls off them, it gives them a very smooth and velvety look. However, what's important to know is that the mines in Kashmir actually closed in the early 20th century. So for all intents and purposes, Kashmir sapphires don't really exist anymore. There's definitely not any new stones coming out of these mines. And the ones that exist in the market do exist from that time period, and they're usually only seen at auction level because these are true investment stones. They're, the absolute upper echelon of a gem collector's dream as far as a beautiful gemstone. And their price ranges are definitely at the very top of the market. So if you happen to be shopping for a blue sapphire and you see the terms, velvet blue or royal velvet blue, cashmere blue, know that this is a stone that is definitely not likely from the Kashmir area unless you are shopping in, a collector's type of retail environment or at auction level. But it could be something that just has that similar kind of saturated blue and velvety texture. So if you do see these types of terms, know that, but definitely be open to asking more questions and more about where these sapphires came from if that is your interest. Ceylon sapphires refer to those stones that come from the island of Sri Lanka, and Sri Lanka is definitely one of the most important sources for any color of sapphire, and especially yellow, pink, and blue. Sri Lanka is known as a metamorphic environment, which means that it's very low in iron, and it gives gems and crystals that grow on the island a very beautiful, saturated, kind of bright and beautiful appearance, and this definitely applies to blue sapphires. Now, even though I mentioned, the most high quality and expensive sapphires tend to be in the medium to medium dark tone, I will say that blue sapphires that come from Sri Lanka tend to have a little bit of a lighter tone, and they can also have a bit of a violet tint to them. And this is sometimes referred to as cornflower blue. So when you see the term cornflower blue in a description, it very well could be a Ceylon sapphire, but again, you're gonna wanna make sure you ask questions and make sure it's actually from Sri Lanka if that's what you're interested in. Lastly, one of the most popular terms that I see when shopping for blue sapphires is royal blue. And again, sometimes it is connected to the Kashmir blue sapphires. However, I think of course it originates from this very famous blue sapphire engagement ring that was worn by Princess Diana and is still currently worn by the Princess of Wales. So again, it's important to know that royal blue isn't a standard term in the industry. I think it's likely trying to convey that beautiful, saturated, deep blue. And of course, when you look at that famous engagement ring that is worn by the Princess of Wales, it is actually from Sri Lanka, so it's a Ceylon blue, but it's a very deep and very dark blue sapphire, which isn't everyone's preference. So again, it just goes to show that when you see these terms, you have to kind of be careful and definitely want to form your own opinions about certain colors and definitely want to see these stones in person as much as you can. As I've mentioned before, it's estimated that around 90% of colored gems are heat treated for mostly their color and sometimes their clarity, and this definitely applies to the blue sapphire market. So untreated, unheated blue sapphires are definitely a minority in the trade. So if you do come across one, know that their price points are going to be significantly higher because they are considered, long-term investment quality gems. And the last thing to know when you're shopping for a blue sapphire is that sapphires tend to be pretty high clarity gemstones, but one of the things that they are known for sometimes is color zoning. And this means you might see some bands of concentrated blue color and even some whitish colored bands in the stone. And of course, when they're cutting these sapphires, they try to, conceal the banding as much as possible in the stone, especially by the setting of the stone, whether it's in a ring or in a necklace or another piece of jewelry. But it's definitely something to look out for. And even though it's not uncommon in a blue sapphire, you definitely don't want it to be under the main table facet of the stone or even to see it face up in the stone. To learn more about blue sapphires and sapphires of all colors, visit us at our main page at winstongemsandjewellery.com.